Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the new screensavers is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of the new Screensavers is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you fresh, high-quality ingredients to cook delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Go to ring.com/NSS and get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer. And by Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. Jira Service Desk delivers everything your IT team needs out of the box at a cost-effective price. For a free trial of Jira Service Desk, visit atlassian.com/twit.
Can we get to Mars in 80 days? Plus, water on Europa and the world's first Bionic Olympics. Live from the Twit Studios in beautiful Petaluma, California, this is the new Screensavers.
Welcome to the new Screensavers. This is episode 73, recorded on Friday, September 30th for Saturday, October 1st, 2016. We're doing a little time travel episode here. I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Scott Wilkinson.
How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Are you kidding? I love doing this show with you. I love doing this show in general. This show, the thing I love about the new Screensavers, versus like all about Android, is so hyper-focused on Android. Tech News Today is like lots of different technology topics. You never really know what you're going to get on the Screensavers.
It's super cool. I really dig it.
Yeah. Excellent. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Before we kind of get into that, though, you did some calibrating. It's the thing you like to do in your spare time.
You know, actually, I find it to be a very meditative process.
I'm sure you do.
Yes, one of the reasons I came up here was to calibrate Leo Laporte's new LG OLED TV.
Oh, okay.
Which is a super high-end, very nice TV. We got a little footage here from that. And like I did 3-4 years ago, I came up and I calibrated it using all kinds of fancy equipment and software. Robert Riener was with me. He's a good friend of Twit. And we got into Leo's house and we did the whole calibration. And we found, interestingly, that the TV was pretty good in its what we call out-of-box condition.
Yeah.
But of course, we could improve it.
Right.
And we did.
That's always so overwhelming for me too. That's where your like epic knowledge of this stuff. I think that I can improve it. And I only end up making it worse.
Well, if you kind of do it by eye, if you just kind of go, well, I think that looks
the
good.
saturation. Perfect.
Yeah, right. Most people at first prefer a brighter picture, more saturated picture.
Yeah.
My concern is getting the image on the TV to reflect as closely as possible, as accurately as possible, what the content creator intended, what they were looking at when they put the content together, the movie or the TV show or whatever, and then sent it to you on your TV. And I want your TV to reflect that as accurately as possible.
Reflect reality, basically.
Well, depending on what the content creator wanted. I mean, there are certain shows and movies that really aren't reality, and they want to make it look a certain way. For example, The Matrix, right? Famous old...
For sure.
It's kind of an old movie. When they're in The Matrix, it has a distinct greenish cast to the image. And when they're in the quote-unquote real world, it doesn't.
Right.
And that was the content creator, the director's intent to differentiate between the cyber world and the real world.
Right.
And you want the TV to reflect that accurately.
Nice.
So,
you basically want your TV to give you what the director actually intended for.
That's
the most important
With standard dynamic range, what we've had now for a long time, that's easy to do. With high dynamic range, which we looked at a little bit during this session, it's not so easy to do.
Yeah.
But it still looks fantastic.
Well, you're the right person to do it. So I'm sure Leo is going to be very happy the next time he turns on that TV when he returns from his vacation.
I hope so.
We've got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about coming up on today's show. We have a couple of scientists to talk about the discovery of water on Europa.
Oh, man, that is so cool.
What this could mean when it comes to finding life on this moon of Jupiter. We've got Olympics for bionic people, essentially. The founder and director of the Cybathlon is here. We're going to have him on the line. That's next Saturday, October 8th. And athletes with assistive technologies are going to be competing against each other. It's like the first time.
That is so amazing.
For this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Scott, you're going to answer a call for help about cutting the cord and over-the-air DVRs. Patrick Norton has some advice when it comes to surge protectors. Ron Richards has a cool tool that he uses for web development, and a whole lot more. But why don't we just get started with our hot topics, which is kind of like the big news that's happening, bubbling up right now. And we are on the eve, at least at the day that this is recorded, on the eve of something pretty significant. ICANN is about to kind of take over control from the U.S. of the DNS, the domain naming service, the domain naming system.
Yeah.
And we have Kieren McCarthy, reporter at the Register, on the line to talk to us about that. How's it going, Kieren?
It's going well. How are you?
Excellent. It's great to have you here today. So tell us a little bit about what's going on here. 4 U.S. states demand restraining order to stop internet power handover to ICANN. Let's unpack that a little bit. What does that actually mean?
Well, it's pretty fast moving. What's happening right now is 4 U.S. states attorneys have decided to try and stop this from going ahead. It should be going ahead at midnight tonight being Friday. And basically, the ICANN should take over permanently this contract that's been awarded to it by the U.S. government for 20 years or so. Some people don't like that, and so there was a big push to try and get Congress to defund it so it couldn't go forward, and that fell through. And this is the last-ditch attempt to prevent it from happening. And it's going to be heard in about 2 hours' time in Texas.
Wow. So we're going to hear about that. Obviously, I think, based on when we've recorded the show, the decision is going to, be made after when we're recording it right now.
Yeah.
What is the potential effect here? Like, what are those who are opposing this transition? What are they worried about?
So I think they're concerned. The U.S. government has this role currently, and they're concerned that if that is taken away, that other governments might somehow get in and influence the future evolution of the internet. It's understandable, but I don't think it's a reality, and that's mostly because the domain name system is a little difficult to understand. The way the internet functions is a little difficult to understand. But for some people, view the U.S. government walking away as an opportunity for other governments to walk in.
From what I understand and from what I've read about this, kind of leading up to tomorrow, basically, is that the role that the U.S. has played for the past, 20 years in its control of the DNS is, they say it's purely administrative, and that by handing it over, they're not really giving control of much of anything. It's just kind of like managing it behind the scenes, but that doesn't actually influence control over the internet, which is, and I say that in air quotes. Were these concerns that those who are worried about this transition, were these concerns considered before the U.S. approved this transition in August?
Yes. So the U.S. government specifically said it came up with 4 main things that had to be sort of met. 4 conditions had to be met, and one of them was that other governments would not be able to have control or would not be in a position to decide things, and that's what's happened. And if you don't understand how the internet works, this looks terrible. Mm-hmm. If you do understand how it works, then the U.S. government it's not lying. It's saying that our job is mostly clerical. And it is. Right. There are all these systems and companies that basically make decisions in the way that they've always made decisions. And the U.S. government has always just simply checked that they've followed those processes. And that's been its role. So that's all we're effectively talking about. But of course, people are concerned that if you take away that role, then what happens? And the sort of organization that will take it over, called ICANN, which is based here in California, people have concerns about that organization. And they're worried that if you take out the U.S. government role, that something terrible could happen. But realistically, it's not going to happen, because if ICANN did do any of the things that people fear that it would do, it would lose its power almost immediately. The internet is not controlled by anyone. It will basically just agree to work together. And if ICANN disrupted that, then they wouldn't work together. And ICANN would lose, by using its power, it would lose its power.
So I guess that means that, for example, one might be afraid that that my domain name might be taken away or changed or restricted in some way.
Or rerouted in a strange way.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a concern.
That's the thing. So what people don't grasp is that you're not talking about example.com, you're talking about .com.
Right.
And then, for example, VeriSign is the organization that sort of redirects all the .com domains. This IANA contract is, where does .com go? Where does .gov go? Where does .uk go? And that's the very, very top level of the internet. So you're not getting down to the level of individual websites, and you're certainly not getting anywhere near the level of actual content. It's a very sort of top level system. And if you started making changes, people would be furious. I mean, it would immediately fall down. If you redirected .com, so every single .com went somewhere else, you would have millions of people shouting in 5 minutes time. So It's just not going to happen. There's
Torches and pitchforks.
.com.
Yeah, there's no good reason.
Basically. Okay, so I mean, we're going to know all about this here in the coming hours, and definitely once this show is published, you'll be able to kind of go online and find out where this landed. Kind of interesting that it's all happening now. It feels kind of pretty politicized at this point. I mean, it feels like it's very, very much so timed with the upcoming presidential election. We've got another topic here that I'm very curious to get your insight on. The Federal Communications Commission is delaying a scheduled vote on rules that are basically meant to free consumers from the expensive world of cable company set-top boxes. The plan's going to require pay TV operators to create apps for their TV offerings and make them available to customers for free, so that can help them avoid those rental costs.
Which can amount to hundreds of dollars.
Oh no, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's part of the reason why I cut the cable, not very long ago.
Why so many people do.
Yeah, exactly. It'll push you right out the door. Kieren, what do you make of this? I mean, obviously the vote is being postponed. Do you feel positive about these changes in bringing forth kind of the restructure, kind of reorganizing the whole playing field, releveling it?
I want to see it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone in this country does not like the fact that we rent a clunky box for way too much money, and it's completely unnecessary. But it does generate literally billions of dollars worth of profit for cable companies. So I'm keen to see this go ahead. The FCC has tried, I think, 3 or 4 times in the past to make this happen, and the cable companies just get in the way each time. The reason there's a delay this time is that the FCC chair needs 3 votes, and he clearly hasn't got them, which is why he has delayed it. And so it all basically revolves around one of the commissioners, Jessica Rosenworcel, who is concerned about the sort of copyright aspects to it. As soon as he can get her on board, I think this will happen.
Do you think these changes, Scott, because I know you've been kind of following this kind of stuff, this is firmly in your wheelhouse. Do you think these changes can have the desired effect? I mean, I feel like before it became about apps, it was a little bit more broad. It was more about compatibility of content with anybody's device. Mm-hmm. And then they narrowed it down to apps. Do you think that was the better way to go, or do you think apps could actually solve the problem?
Oh, I think it's a step in the right direction, definitely. I mean, we are moving away from linear TV as it is, right? And so more app-based. I mean, we're seeing TVs with apps in them and so on. Vizio just announced its Google Cast TV, right? You control from your phone. Mm-hmm. So I think this is kind of inevitable. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly good for consumers, not good for cable companies, which is why they're opposing it so strongly.
So once again, we're going to find out a little bit more about this particular story. I mean, they're pushing it off to next month. I suppose it's entirely possible that we get to next month and FCC is still like, hey, actually we need to do a little bit more rejiggering of the process. Mm-hmm. They say that they're delaying it because they still have specifics to iron out. Kieren, do you think that maybe the delay, I mean, do you think that there might be something, even further happening behind the scenes that's delaying? It's not just a matter of ironing out details. It might be a matter of it just not possibly being effective at all or being passed through eventually.
I think it's politics, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
Jessica Rosenworcel is she has been chosen to continue her term, but the Republicans in Congress are refusing to let that go forward. And if they don't basically agree to her by the end of the year, she's out. And so she needs to strike a very fine line between being approving of this and making sure that people's concerns are heard. So she needs to make sure that it feels right. So she needs to find the middle line. And that's why it's been delayed, because they haven't reached that point yet. Cable companies are still upset that this could basically undermine their business model. So who knows what's happening? There's a lot going on behind the scenes. Most of it is political.
Yeah. At the moment, the FCC has this board that's making this decision has 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. And if the 3 Democrats end up deciding, yes, this is what we're going to do, then it'll go.
Right.
But as he says, it's very political.
Yeah. Isn't everything? That's the way it feels right now anyways.
I know.
It's just the time. Kieren McCarthy, reporter at The Register. Really appreciate you hopping on the line and helping us kind of dissect these 2 stories. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Excellent. We'll talk to you soon, Kieren. And we've got a final story if we want to talk a little bit about space before we talk a lot about space in Europa. Before we get there, how about Mars,
Hey,
right?
Mars.
Did you kind of follow Elon Musk's hyper-detailed explanation of how we're going to colonize Mars?
Somewhat, yeah. It seems kind of unrealistic to me. I think he's saying within 10 years, and I'm going, I don't know about that.
Oh, man. It's just kind of crazy. I think he even, there's even the target of 1 million on Mars by 2060, which... I guess that's my lifetime. I just can't imagine a future where there are 1 million people from Earth living on Mars. It feels like there are a lot of pieces to fall into place.
Yeah, a lot of pieces have to fall into place. And even Elon Musk, who's a billionaire, right? He's not going to be able to fund this. Where's he going to get the money? I mean, this is going to be many, many, many billions of dollars.
Yeah, well, he says that the most important element of this and what SpaceX has been really hard at work on is creating reusable parts, essentially reusable rockets, let's say, re-landing them after the fact.
Yep.
When you finally get that ship landed on Mars, they start to work on creating the fuel that's going to send that rocket back. Which is unbelievable to think about the kind of reality of that. But he says that that's what's required in order to make this not only feasible, technically feasible, but also to make it cost effective. Right now, it's about $10 billion per person is what it would cost to send one person to Mars with traditional methods. He wants to get that down to $200,000 per person, and then eventually down to $100,000 per person. Still no chump change, but
but still, compared to 10 billion?
Yeah, well, I mean, big difference.
Fraction of a percent.
Yeah. So would you go?
Probably not. I mean, yes, in my fantasy life, absolutely, I would go, no question. But practically speaking, I'm probably past the age where it'd be a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about going out to Mars and then, you go to Mars, you're probably staying on Mars, I'm guessing.
This is what I think, too. I mean, you just said about he's going to make fuel there to bring the rocket back. Okay, that's maybe so, but I think it's more or less a one-way trip.
Yeah, that seems to be. And although I will add, they did a really nice, highly produced, almost cinematic kind of video to illustrate exactly how this is going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I think I want a motion picture from Elon Musk someday in the future.
But I mean, we haven't been even back to the moon since 1972. I think he's being pretty overly optimistic myself, but that's just me.
And that's his character. That's exactly why people love Elon Musk, because he actually thinks about this stuff seriously. I mean, there are a lot of people that have grand visions, but just kind of, people discredit them because it's crazy talk. It's crazy talk to think that we could possibly colonize Mars. He's a billionaire, or I think he's a billionaire. I imagine he's a billionaire at this point, who actually has taken the time to focus, actual thought and make a plan, and all the way down to the budget of it, the technical implications behind the scenes. I mean, and I can't help but trust that he thinks he knows what he's doing.
Well, and look at Tesla. I mean, that has been really amazing, the progress that he's made in electric cars.
Yeah, absolutely has. Speaking of space, I think this is a good time to transition over to finding water on Europa.
Well, we always knew it was there. We have for a long time, but I think there's some news on that front.
We've got William Sparks, an astronomer with the Space Telescope Science Institute, as well as Jennifer Wiseman with the Hubble Space Telescope, the senior project scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing
Very
great.
good, thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Hey.
So Hubble has collected some amazing images here, and I'm sure we're going to be showing them off. It's a lot more than just pretty pictures. How exactly is Hubble helping us with discovery right now?
Well, let me chime in first, and I will then hand it over to Dr. Sparks here. We're very excited at NASA because Hubble is just continuing to pull in phenomenal new discoveries and results, even 26 years into its mission. And this is an example of that. This research team led by William Sparks has used one of the Hubble spectrographs to take an image that is indicative of potential water plumes coming from the surface of Europa. This is the second time a research team has used Hubble and found preliminary evidence. It's not proof, but evidence that is building a case toward water plumes venting through the ice. So with that, I would hand it over to Dr. Sparks to explain exactly what he's done.
So what we did, as Jennifer said, we've observed Europa, which has a global saline ocean. And that makes it an extremely exciting place to observe in the solar system. Having an ocean means that it's the best place, the most likely place for hosting extant life beyond the Earth. Not only that, it's also a potential site for a second origin of life beyond the Earth. The trouble is, it's hidden, the ocean, which has more water in it than Earth's oceans, is hidden between tens of kilometers of ice. We don't actually know how much ice there is covering the ocean, so that suggests it's going to be very hard to explore the ocean. What we've been doing is looking to try and see if we can find a shortcut, which is to find cracks in the ice where water might be escaping from the ocean into space. And we used Hubble to do that. As Hubble passes in front of Jupiter, which it does every orbit, we have the
Europa,
possibility.
yeah.
We have the possibility to see the outline, silhouettes of these water jets that could be coming from the ice surface of Europa. And our results showed some preliminary evidence that that is in fact happening.
So there must be enough pressure on the interior of Europa to force these water jets to tunnel through tens of kilometers of ice, as you say, to shoot out into space, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's actually very difficult just to get water to spray out into space because ice is less dense than water, and so it kind of happily sits on the top. However, there are multiple ways in which it could happen. There's been a couple of fairly detailed studies about cryovolcanism from Europa. One probably slightly preferred method would be for an intermediate reservoir of water which sits within the ice between the ocean and the surface, and that's fairly easy to pressurize because as the ice grows into the reservoir, the water's got nowhere to go, and a crack in the ice can open up and spray the water out into space. There are other possibilities. There could be dissolved volatiles within the water, or this terrain above the water could be collapsing if there's a localized heat source. So there are many possibilities. We're just starting at the beginning to see if there actually is any evidence of these plumes.
Now, you mentioned a heat source, and that was my next question. Clearly, the surface of Europa is covered with ice because it has no atmosphere. It's very cold where it is. How does the water become liquid deeper down? Where's the heat source there?
Well, the current thinking is that it's tidally generated as Europa goes around Jupiter, it's in resonance with the other Galilean satellites, and there's a significant amount of tidal heating. You see that in extreme in Io, which has sulfur volcanoes and is extremely hot, and it's basically the same.
What about radiation from Jupiter? Wouldn't that affect the development of life even under the icy surface?
The radiation can't penetrate too far. It can be an advantage rather than a disadvantage because it's providing energy and chemicals on the surface, and if there's some sort of cycling mechanism with the ocean, that can actually be used to advantage. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'm sure the radiation depths are measured in more like meters than kilometers.
Ah, okay.
Now, Jennifer, obviously, I mean, the Hubble is instrumental to this discovery and to a whole lot more. What exactly is the future of Hubble? Why is this particular discovery so important for Hubble?
Well, we're particularly pleased because Hubble is being used in, I think, ingenious ways now. Scientists such as Dr. Sparks here are finding interesting new techniques to use with the telescope to make new discoveries. So for solar system work, this is a cutting edge result. Similarly, we recently looked at Jupiter with Hubble to see its auroral activity, the aurorae that are excited by the magnetic fields as they interact with charged particles. And we can do this with Hubble because Hubble can see in ultraviolet wavelengths of light. That's something that no telescope on the ground can really do because of our atmosphere. And Hubble is really the only telescope, even in space, that can look at Europa and these features in such detail in ultraviolet light. So it's these kinds of cutting edge and unique things that we're trying to do with Hubble while we still have Hubble. The observations of Jupiter's aurorae were quite timely because it happened at the same time that the Juno probe reached Jupiter recently and began its orbit and its studies of Jupiter's magnetic field. So we're using Hubble in this way in collaboration with other missions as well to get the most new scientific information that we can from all of these different probes and observatories. Now, Hubble is working very well, and we have the astronauts and all the engineers who support that program much to thank for that, because the astronauts have done several servicing missions on the Hubble telescope over its 26-year life, and the most recent servicing mission was in 2009. The astronauts did a terrific job putting in 2 brand new science instruments and repairing 2 other ones. One of those repaired instruments is the one that Bill Sparks and his team have used for these results we're discussing today. It's not a camera, it's a spectrograph, the Space Telescope Imaging Spectrograph. So in some sense, it's both a camera and a spectrograph. It takes the light and spreads it out into its constituent colors. A previous team used that to detect components of water vapor potentially outside of Europa's ice. And now this team has used the same instrument, which was repaired by astronauts in that heroic repair in 2009, to do more imaging type work, to look at Europa kind of in silhouette as it passed in front of Jupiter and seeing sort of a silhouetted image of these potential plume-like structures coming out. So we're excited about what we're able to do with Hubble now, with our new instruments and with these repaired instruments. And we think Hubble's working very well. We really think it's going to work for quite a few more years, hopefully well into the 2020s, and overlapping with the new James Webb Space Telescope that we are anticipating to launch in 2018. That's going to be another large flagship observatory in space, but it will be more adept at infrared wavelengths of light. So that will be a nice complementary observatory to Hubble, which does some infrared, but mostly visible and ultraviolet wavelengths.
I was going to ask, what do ultraviolet studies reveal that visible light analysis would not?
Well, ultraviolet light typically shows us very energetic processes. That's why we used it, for example, to look at the aurorae on on Jupiter, that kind of thing. I'll turn it over to William here to tell us why exactly ultraviolet was important for these recent Europa observations. But we're also hoping in the future with the James Webb Space Telescope that infrared wavelengths, which is a much longer wavelength, lower energy type of light, will be useful because there are water vapor transitions that radiate in infrared wavelengths. So there's a variety of different wavelength combinations that can give us a suite of information when we're looking for evidence of water around Europa. But Bill, do you want to chime in on why you were using ultraviolet for your observation?
In the ultraviolet, the spatial resolution, the fineness of detail that Hubble can resolve when it takes a picture is at its best. It's significantly better than it is in the visible. It's a factor of a few better. Not only that, the molecules that we're looking for, water and oxygen, have high cross sections, and so they absorb and scatter light quite effectively, as do small ice particles. Ice itself, for the same reason, is very dark in the ultraviolet, and so Europa appears dark against the bright background of Jupiter. Jupiter itself is very smooth in the ultraviolet, and so we have a smooth, uniform backlit screen against which we can see dark water absorbing the light which is scattered by Jupiter from the sun, and it gives us a really excellent platform to try and do this experiment.
Now, Jennifer, you had mentioned and kind of gone into a little bit of detail about how the Hubble telescope has been kind of maintained over the years, but you also kind of hinted as long as we have access to it. I mean, what do you, if you were to think about the lifespan, the expected lifespan of the Hubble telescope going forward, what would you say?
Well, we are thrilled that we've had this observatory for 26 years, and it truly is now, even after all this time, at the peak of its scientific capabilities and return, because we have both this terrific suite of instruments and great shape of batteries, gyroscopes, and we have scientists using the telescope in very clever new ways, both to study solar system phenomena like Europa, but also some of the most distant galaxies. So we're really very scientifically productive right now with Hubble. And as I mentioned, the actual components that make Hubble operate well, it's gyroscopes that help us point, the batteries, and the main suite of instruments are all in pretty good shape. So that is why we are confidently hopeful that we can still be using Hubble for good science return well into the 2020s. It's very hard to predict because at this point we don't know exactly what might break down and when. We don't have a space shuttle program operating anymore, so we're not planning any astronaut servicing missions. So we are just hoping that what we have will work well for quite a few more years. And the thought of it overlapping with the James Webb Space Telescope is really thrilling for scientists, because it means we would have these very sensitive major observatories operating simultaneously, covering wavelength ranges all the way from well into the what we call the mid-infrared, through the near-infrared, visible light, and into ultraviolet light. And we can look at some of these phenomena in multiple wavelengths and really understand much better what's going on. So it's a good time for astronomy and astronomical science right now.
What was the original anticipated lifetime of the Hubble, and has that already been exceeded?
Well, it was hard to say because the telescope was launched thinking that it would be repeated, serviced as often as needed, and it wasn't really clear what that end date would be. I think people were excited to think we might go 10 years with Hubble, maybe 15. But because the servicing has been so successful and the observatory has been so successful, we're now at 26 and hoping to go beyond 30. So it's been a great return on taxpayer investment.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as what you're discovering there, how long before we can confirm a habitable underwater world? What do you think about that one?
So what we are really initially looking for is habitability. Like, is Europa habitable for life? Sure. Are the oceans habitable? how would we be able to characterize conditions in the ocean? That's our first goal. And of course, we would really like to know eventually whether it's inhabited, whether there are at least microbial life in the oceans. And that will take a later, more sophisticated mission that can actually go and land and sample this kind of thing. That there should be a preliminary mission that's in at least in the conceptual planning stage now, of a probe that would go and orbit very close to, would orbit Jupiter, but pass very close to Europa, and be able to do some very close measurements of some of these features and of habitability, maybe even sample some of the water vapor from these plumes. But again, that would probably just inform us about the habitability of Europa, not whether there's actual life there, until we can send some kind of a lander or something that could actually sample the surface. And of course, if you have to dig through the ice, that's really a technological challenge. And of course, you don't want to contaminate the place with your own equipment. So this brings a lot of challenges, but a lot of interest too.
So I guess William, I was going to ask you if there's any way to detect, say, the level of salinity, because for life, I think you would need salinity to be within certain boundaries, right? Certain limits. Is there any way to detect that now, or would we need to actually, as Jennifer suggests, send a probe there to land, or at least fly through a plume and take some samples?
The instrument complement for the upcoming mission that Jennifer described is extremely sophisticated, although it can't look for life. I'm not that familiar with the details of it, but I would be surprised if that was a measurement it couldn't make. It was the main evidence that we have for an ocean on Europa came from the Galileo spacecraft magnetometer readings, and so it was the response of the conducting fluid of the ocean to the magnetic Jovian environment as the moon orbited Jupiter that was in fact the clue to the presence of a saline ocean in the first place, and I think it's reasonable to suppose that those experiments will have been refined by now quite a lot.
We have a question from the chat room, actually. If either of you had one day with the Hubble to yourself, where would you point it? What would you most want to What would you most want to study right now? Probably maybe Europa.
Yeah. Possibly so.
Well, let me jump in. I think if I only had one day, that
which is not a lot of time.
anything in the solar system is dynamic. We've discovered that that the planets, their atmospheres change constantly. Jupiter's giant red spot is shrinking. We see the aurorae dancing around, changing. We see comets and asteroids coming through, some of them disintegrating, colliding. So there's a lot of activity. If I had one day, I'd probably look at something in the solar system, and quite likely Europa right now. It's so interesting. If I had more time, I would do what astronomers are already doing, which is to look in very deep fields where we can see the other end of the distance scale is to look in deep space. At fields of galaxies that are truly billions of light years away in space and time, and that gives us this incredible view of the history of our universe as we look at galaxies as they were when their light began the journey to us. So we're literally looking back in time. So those are the kinds of observations with Hubble that intrigue me the most.
William, how about you?
If I had a day, I'd probably use it to go around the solar system, taking a particular type of observation that interests me, which is the polarization of light. And that tells us about the scattering properties of the surfaces and the atmospheres and the hazes and things like the surface texture of the various moons that we can observe. A day wouldn't help much with this particular experiment because they come around once every 3.5 days and they last for 2 hours. But if it was right there within that time frame, I'd do a couple more of these if I could as well. It's proving extremely interesting.
Given everything that you guys have accomplished, I think you've earned at least 3 or 4 days with the Hubble telescope. I think it'll be okay. We can make that work. And who knows, maybe someday in the future, we'll all have a Hubble telescope.
Yeah.
I'm thinking positively here.
Great.
William Sparks, Jennifer Wiseman, both of you, it's been a real treat talking with you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion and your knowledge about all of these amazing discoveries. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for
having us. Yes.
Absolutely. Best of luck and continue keeping on. We'll certainly be following. Take care, you guys. All right. In a few minutes, we're going to have a call for help because that's one of the things that we do here. People call or
they need
record
help.
a video message in this case, and we help them. But before that, Patrick Norton was the co-host of last week's show. He was on. He actually has some really good advice about surge protectors. I never actually thought about this before, but it's totally on point.
Yeah.
Here's a hint. Do not pick one up at a garage sale. Let's take a look.
Hey everybody, Patrick Norton here from Twitch and Tech Thing, and we need to talk about a dirty secret about surge protectors. Something I didn't learn until recently when I was reading an article up on the Wirecutter is that surge protectors wear out. And this is going to sound really stupid, but that's why they have the little light right here that says protected, which if you might notice actually isn't on right now, despite the fact that this thing is plugged in. That's a problem. Inside your surge protector is a whole bunch of things called metal oxide varistors or moves, and they wear out with each surge, like the brake pads on a car. Now, for me, I always thought there'd be a violent surge of electricity down from the heavens, lightning bolts, this thing would explode, and all of my equipment would be protected. But the reality is there's little micro fluctuations each and every day in the electricity that goes to your home, sometimes worse, sometimes less. It really depends on the cables and the electric company you're dealing with and how old their system is. But essentially, they keep wearing out even when you don't think they're taking a hit. There's no way to predict when it's going to run out. There's no way to know unless one of two things happen. The little light goes on and it keeps passing through electricity. And how often really do you look for the little light on your surge protector? Or number two, it actually stops passing electricity to your equipment because it's like, hey, I can't stop surges anymore. It's time to let them know I don't work. And what those do is actually shut down the ability to move electricity through it. Problematic if you're, say, trying to get a whole bunch of stuff done that weekend, but really great if you're worried about an electrical strike taking out everything in your home. In any case, a really good one to look for is a Trip Light TLP 1008 TEL. Costs $33. It cuts the power when the surge blocking wears out. That's the one the Wirecutter recommends, and they looked at dozens, if not hundreds. It is good stuff, and if you didn't know the difference between a power strip and a surge protector, remember, this one has the ability to protect your equipment against power spikes. A lot of people don't need it, but if you live in thunderstorm country, if you have electrical issues, you should have a surge protector in between all of your delicate electronics and the outlets. And this, kids, is just a basic power strip, okay? That's an important difference, and you gotta know that these wear out just like the oil in your car. Got a hardware question? Do us a favor, send it over to Twitch This Week in Computer Hardware. You can find myself and Ryan Shrout talking about computer hardware each and every week at twit.tv/TWICH.
Man, so we moved into a house like 2 or 3 years ago, and out in the garage was this epic looking surge protector or whatever. It did look a little old, but I brought it in. I gave it a new home. Now I'm thinking that wasn't such a good idea.
Well, you don't live in lightning country
true,
particularly, so it might be okay.
Yeah,
but I think you might want to heed Patrick's advice.
Better safe than sorry when you're protecting your computers and your TVs and all this kind of expensive stuff.
Instead of finding one in the garage. Oh, let's use that.
I know, yeah, I'll just totally use that. Oh man, that was a bad idea. Let's take a break. We're going to thank the sponsor of today's episode. This is the part of the show where you get hungry. If you weren't already hungry, prepare for more hunger. Blue Apron is the sponsor of this episode. Blue Apron has a mission, and basically it's to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. Also supporting a sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients, and building a community of home chefs. Blue Apron really once you're getting the Blue Apron box and you're getting used to using the recipes and everything, you become a home chef. You become seasoned, for lack of a better word, at making great meals for yourself that people are going to love. Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with fresh, high-quality ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Every meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card, pre-portioned ingredients. You're going to save time. You're going to save money. Because, you know, shopping at a grocery store, it's 60% more expensive than if you get your food through Blue Apron. If you spend a lot of money and a lot of time eating out or at high-end grocery chains, well, here you're going to spend under $10 per person for healthy home-cooked meals. It really just makes it easy, and it's a lot less expensive. You can customize your recipes every week based on your dietary preferences and choose a delivery option that fits your needs. There are no weekly commitments, so you only get deliveries when you actually want them. Blue Apron delivers to 99% of the continental U.S. And it's all about quality too. Blue Apron really has their mind set on quality. Highest quality standards for their community. Over 150 local farms, fisheries, and ranchers across the U.S. Seafood is sourced sustainably. Beef is raised humanely, chickens are free range, pork is raised naturally, and regenerative farming practices are used for produce. And they're sending you the exact amount required for a recipe. So in doing so, it makes the recipe easier to do because you get exactly what you need to put in portion-wise, but it also reduces food waste. You have exactly what's needed, and you end up eating it all anyways. So whether it's Japanese ramen noodles, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, or heirloom tomatoes, Blue Apron is focused on bringing you the very best. And not only are they supporting a sustainable food system, they're supporting happy and healthy families, because when you cook together, it builds strong family bonds. Research shows that Blue Apron families cook nearly 3 times more often because they're moved to. They get the box, they get the recipe cards. You got to dive in order to do that. New recipes are created every week by Blue Apron's culinary team. They're not repeated within a year. So, you know, here's the part where you start salivating. Crispy chicken Milanese with warm Brussels sprouts, celery, and potato salad. Okay, maybe tomorrow you have Thai green curry chicken and squash with yu choy, jasmine rice, and cashews. Maybe roasted pork steamed buns with black garlic mayonnaise and spicy cabbage slaw. Oh, it doesn't end there. Seared salmon and fall vegetable hash with apple brown butter dressing. I think I know what I'm eating this week.
You're right. You're making me hungry.
I'm sorry. I apologize. We've still got more show to go, and then we can get some lunch. Possibly Blue Apron. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So do not wait. Visit blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of the new screensavers. It's that time for a call for help. All right, we have, I think we got a video call from Denson from Alabama. And why don't you take it away, Denson?
Hey guys, how are you doing?
We're doing good.
My question is, I want to relieve myself of our Dish network. We only watch a handful of channels. So I was looking into getting one of the digital antennas, a DVR, and somehow being able to record scheduled programs from local channels mainly. I looked into some of the devices, but it looks like in order to for me to be able to record the shows, I would have to have some kind of service that has a schedule, a program schedule. Otherwise, you would have to kind of record things manually as they come on.
Well, it's a great question.
Yep.
And I think he mentioned that first he needs an antenna for what are called terrestrial broadcasts or over-the-air or OTA.
Indoor, outdoor?
I prefer outdoor. I prefer rooftop. It's going to get a much stronger signal from wherever. It depends on also where he lives.
Yeah,
I know a guy
really close to the tower.
He was close to the tower, but he was right up against the mountain where the tower was, and none of the signal was actually getting to him. Oh. So it kind of depends on the geography of where the broadcast tower is and where he is. Generally speaking, though, a rooftop antenna is going to do a better job than an indoor. Then, as he mentioned, he needs a DVR, digital video recorder. And there are a number of options there. TiVo is probably the most commonly cited. They have a couple of models. The newest one is called the Bolt. which is 4K. It also depends on what kind of display he has. If he doesn't have a 4K display, he doesn't need a 4K DVR.
For sure.
But that is certainly a good option. It comes in a 500 gigabyte and a 1 terabyte hard drive version. They also, at CEDIA this year, announced the new Bolt Plus, which is 1 terabyte, or it might be 3 terabytes now that I'm thinking about it.
It's a lot of video.
Which is, I think it comes in 2 versions, a 1 and a 3, which is a lot of video. It's 4K. The Bolt has 4 tuners. You could record up to 4 different things at once. The Bolt Plus has 6, so you could record 6 things at once.
Now, in order to do that, though, when you're talking about over-the-air signal, I mean, I guess what there's multiple tuners inside there to kind of grab from those different channels.
Exactly. The antenna is picking up all the signals all at once. Simultaneously, and then the tuner
that makes sense.
Tells you which one to watch or which one to record. Exactly. And as he also pointed out, you need a subscription of some sort of electronic program guide, or EPG.
Right.
So that you can schedule things ahead of time. You can look at the program guide. You can say, oh, I want to record Monday Night Football or whatever, and you can do that. TiVo charges you something for that, $15 a month. You can prepay for a year. I believe there's also still a lifetime subscription. They used to have a lifetime subscription as well. And so if you can even distribute that around your house with these little, what are called TiVo Minis, right? They're like little client devices that chain off of the Bolt, or they also make one called a Romeo, which is kind of an older one. You know, I found a great article about this at a website called CutCableToday.com, and their favorite one is one I hadn't heard of before, called the Tableau. And this one
I haven't heard of that one either.
I hadn't heard of it. And it doesn't have an internal hard drive, but it has a port where you can hang a hard drive off of it and then record that way. And let's see.
2 tuner and 4 tuner options here.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly right.
It's like the 2 tuner on Amazon, at least, is $196.99.
Right. And the bolts, I forgot to mention that, are in the $300-400 range.
Oh, okay.
So they're more expensive.
It's a little more cost effective, at least.
Yeah, exactly. And it also offers a service for $5 a month, $50 a year, or $150 for lifetime. So it's less than TiVo there as well. This website really likes this Tableau, and now that I know about it, I'm going to have to try it out myself. But
yeah, just going to have to test it out.
Yeah,
your life is hard, having to test out all of these awesome gadgets.
No, it's a tough job, and somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes you awesome at what you do.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of experience with OTA, over-the-air broadcasts at our home. We were always on Comcast or DirecTV or whatever. We cut the cable a few months ago, and I tried the indoor antenna, and that failed miserably up here in Petaluma. It just does not work very well. So I know if I really want to do that, I'm going to have to go on top of the house.
You're going to have to go on your roof and put. And what I have on top of my house is one of these rooftop antennas with a rotor. Right, so it's got a motorized thing that actually then I have a little controller in my theater, and I can point the thing so that it's aimed at the broadcast towers in LA. And I get wonderful reception. Over-the-air broadcasts typically look better than cable or satellite because they're less compressed. Of course, you're only getting the local stations or whatever the broadcasters are putting out. You can't get things like Discovery or History and stuff like that. So that
limiting on that front.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to get that kind of stuff, you can stream it. You know?
Well, I've got the PlayStation Vue. That was my solution. Is you can drop into that for $40 a month. You end up getting 40 or 60 channels or something, all your locals.
Sure.
A lot of what I actually cared about on cable, they're represented there. And yes, it's streaming. I know that Denson said he's on DSL, so it's not an option. But I did some searching around and found some people who were also on DSL. I don't know what their bandwidth was compared to yours, Denson. But they were able to make PlayStation Vue work. So, you know, they have a free trial. You might as well try it out and see if it works for you.
Another option is Sling TV.
Yeah, that's another one. But they don't do the DVR stuff. Comprehensively, they don't do the DVR stuff on everything.
That's correct. Although I think they might have a cloud DVR service. I have to look into this. I seem to remember that, but I'm not going to verify that till I actually look it up.
Yeah. Worth checking out, though. If there are free trials, you never know. Your DSL might perform better than you think. Depending on the service that you're using, it might be kind of more.
Now, I will say that DSL generally is lower speed than cable.
Yeah.
And so I've been advised that if you're going to stream on DSL, you want to take everything else off your network. You know, if
no
your kid's
Dropbox happening in the background.
Yeah, exactly. If your kids are in another room
Yeah,
online or something, it's
well,
really going to affect the performance.
The gaming in the other room is going to zap it entirely.
Yep.
Thanks for sending in that question, Denson. We really appreciate it. Next week, Leo is going to be back along with Jason Snell, who's going to be joining him on set. If you have an Apple, iPhone, or MacBook Pro question, here is how you could be on the show.
Need tech help? The new screensavers are here with answers. Email your tech questions to newscreensavers@twit.tv.
All right, coming up, we have Rob Riener, who is starting the world's first bionic Olympics.
Man, that is so cool.
Where basically human and machine are one, fused, and just demonstrating the power and everything that you can do right now with technology.
And the importance of how it improves those with disabilities, how it improves their lives.
Absolutely. It's an incredible display. We're going to talk to him all about that. But before we do that, let's thank the sponsor of this episode. That's the Ring Video Doorbell. It's my doorbell. I have a Ring Video Doorbell.
It's my doorbell too.
Excellent. I love it. It's awesome. We've got the motion detection set so that we know when somebody drops off a package. Or just the other night, my girls and I were out on the front step setting up for Halloween because they're really excited about that. And my wife, who's away on vacation, or not vacation, she's working, she's away on work.
Yeah.
Got the motion detection, and we talked to her through the Ring Video Doorbell.
Yeah.
It was a nice
so
surprise.
Cool.
So basically, this is all about protecting your home first and foremost, right? Home burglaries happen every 13 seconds. Most burglaries happen in broad daylight, and burglars will ring your doorbell to make sure that you're away before they come in. If they ring this doorbell, they're going to get that noise, and what that's going to do is that's going to send me, or you, if you have one of these on your home, you're going to get a notification on your phone that you can answer immediately. You can look at it. It streams video to your phone, so you see who's right there. And if it's a burglar and they're wearing that little burglar mask or whatever, they'll like slink away and run off into the sunset.
That's right.
And they'll be like, get off my porch. Ring Video Doorbell has been proven to stop burglaries before they happen. That's because you can see and speak to anyone approaching your door using your phone. Now Ring is using their advanced motion detection technology to protect your entire property. They have the Ring of Security kits on the site. Kits include a Ring Video Doorbell and may include a stick-up cam, solar panel, chime, and a solar security sign. So the Pro kits include a slim Video Doorbell Pro. That's the upgraded version with crystal clear 1080p HD video and night vision. It's also hardwired, so you never have to charge the battery underneath. The wireless and weatherproof HD stick-up cam keeps an eye on other parts of your property and also allows you to hear and speak to visitors with two-way talk there. You can plug the chime into any standard power outlet to know when you have a visitor, even if you happen to have left your phone upstairs. We have one in our downstairs living room, so if I stash my phone upstairs in our bedroom or whatever, somebody rings the doorbell up front, we hear it in the living room like a traditional doorbell, so that's awesome. The illuminated solar security sign deters intruders before they even get to your door. The Ring Video Doorbell and stick-up cam install in just minutes. They make it really easy. They've got the kit inside. And you can see like right here.
It's really beautifully designed packaging.
Yeah, they give you everything you need. I mean, it literally, in order to install our doorbell, I think this was like a 5-minute project. I was like, all right, hunkering down for a 30-minute thing. Let's get this all figured out. And it took me like 5 minutes. It's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
So they give you everything you need. Working together, they provide 24/7 monitoring of your entire home, whether you're in the living room or if you happen to be thousands of miles away. And now you can connect your Ring Video Doorbell with your favorite smart locks and hubs for added convenience, monitoring, and security. Basically taking your home and turning it into a smart home and a protected home, because that's what Ring is all about. Join the millions of homeowners who protect their home with Ring. For a limited time, the new Screensavers listeners can get up to $150 off one of the Ring of Security kits. Go to ring.com/NSS. That's ring.com/NSS, and we thank Ring for their support of the new Screensavers. All right, we've got some really cool stuff to talk about here. Joining us is Robert Riener. He is the founder and director of Cybathlon And this is really cool stuff. It's a championship for athletes with disabilities, and basically using all sorts of assistive technologies to kind of showcase what you can do to kind of push those to their limits. Wow. It's premiering next Saturday, October 8th in Swiss Arena in Kloten. How's it going, Robert?
Yeah, it's good, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is really cool stuff. I love kind of we just got through with the Summer Olympics, so everybody's kind of used to, these kind of sports.
Big sporting events, competition.
Exactly, bombast, competition. But this is like taking it to another level. What is, before we kind of get into the event itself, what's your background in this field, and how did you come up with the idea for it?
Yeah. I'm a professor of rehabilitation robotics, so we develop a lot of robotic devices for people with disabilities, for patients after stroke or spinal cord injury. And by meeting all these patients, I got this idea of the Cybathlon.
So tell us a little bit about the Cybathlon. Where does it begin? How does someone get involved with this?
Yes, so we have invited many famous teams working in the area of assistive devices, robotic technologies made for people with disabilities, like powered prostheses, powered wheelchairs. And we invited people from research labs as well as from companies. And now they will come on Saturday next week and participating at this event. And what we want to show with this is not only the best technology existing, we also want to show the problems still existing by applying these technologies. It's still a big challenge for people using an exoskeletal device to stand up and sit down from a sofa, or to go upstairs with their wheelchairs, or to prepare breakfast with their arm prostheses. We want to show the deficiencies and in this way promote the development of better technologies in the future.
Wow. Is there any precedent for this particular kind of approach, this particular style of competition to this level?
It's a world premiere in this way, so there's no other event where so many different disciplines are presented by international competitors in a stadium with several thousands people watching it, and live television is also there. So it's a very big event, and nothing like this happened before.
What exactly are the games that these cybathletes will be participating in?
So we have 6 different games or disciplines, categories as we call them, and they include races with arm prostheses, race with leg prostheses, and they can be powered, they can be novel, they can be as the developers want to make it be, as long as they are safe. There's another race with wheelchairs. Then there are races with powered exoskeletons, which are worn outside the body and support people with complete paraplegia, for example. And then we have a special thing. We have a brain-computer interface race. So people who are very paralyzed are just sitting, watching a game, and they can control the avatar in the game just with their thoughts.
Man, the brain-computer interface, I saw that in the preview that we were just watching. I was like, that takes it to a completely new level, right?
Seriously.
You've got this competition of purely physical, but then we're starting at this point with the help of technology. This is what we're looking at right here. With the help of technology, we're starting to realize just the power of our brains. When we figure out how to connect technology to our brains in the right way, what can you do? Explain that event a little bit, because I'm really, really interested in this.
So when you start to move your leg or your hand, the brain is active right before you're doing this movement. And it's possible to record this activity because this activity is based on electrical activity. So you can wear one of these helmets, as you see, these caps. Wow. They're standard caps, you can buy them. They're used in diagnostics in neurology, for example. And it's possible to detect these different activities and assign them to different thoughts after some kind of calibration or training. And so you can think about a special thing, let's say go left, go right, go up, down, go faster, slower, and in this way you can control your avatar in the game. And now, since we do not want to do programming for games, we want to support people with disabilities. So the idea in the long run is to use these interfaces to control a wheelchair, for example, in the future, or to control a prosthetic device, control any kind of kitchen devices for home use in order to improve the quality of life of people with strong and severe disabilities.
Wow, that is fascinating. So obviously, I suppose the parallel here would be the Paralympics. How does this kind of compare or differentiate from the Paralympics?
There's a little bit of similarities, but also big differences. It's similar with respect to that it's a competition where people are want to be the first or the best. And it's in a stadium, people are watching it. And it's with people with disabilities. But that's actually all. The main difference is that we have here activities of daily life. It's not the goal to find the fastest and the strongest and those who can jump longest. It's to find those people who are most skilled to use technology and in this way are able to compete with daily life challenges. And by allowing technology, we don't have a problem with techno-doping because we need technology to support these people. But by allowing the technology, we can also include patients with more severe disabilities who could not take part at the Paralympics because there's no category for them.
Wow.
Yeah, this addresses a question that I had, which is, at the Olympics, you know, there's all this thing about doping and keeping a level playing field. And my initial question was, how do you keep a level playing field? Man, the person with the strongest exoskeleton is going to win.
Right.
But it's not exactly a competition in that sense, what you just said.
You're right. They can bring the strongest technology as long as it's safe, of course. And we have build in some hurdles that is not getting too dangerous, of course. But they can bring anything which is novel and powerful. They have to be trained with the athletes or the pilots, as we call them.
Pilots, that's good.
Love it.
Yeah. Yep. And since it's not so much on body performance and power, we are not afraid that the pilots are doping with pharmacy, and on the other hand, of course, technology can also be used to dope, but that's what we want.
Yeah, it really seems to be kind of a showcase not only of the skill, the ambition, the drive of the people who are kind of, you know, behind the technology, but also a display of what technology can actually do nowadays. That you couldn't do any of this stuff, let's say 20 years ago, at least not to this capacity. Technology has allowed for people who couldn't walk to walk, you know, in very new ways, cutting edge ways. So this seems like a demonstration not only of the people and their skill, but also of just how far technology has come to help them.
Yes, and it's even more. It's you know, for the life of the people with disability, technology is just one thing in their life.
Right.
It's also about inclusion. They're often discriminated and not included into the society. And by bringing the people together at the stadium, in the races, the pilots are developing together with the engineers. Children in the auditory can come and try out the wheelchairs and the exoskeletons. We made an exhibition for this. And this way we bring together the people and try to get rid of barriers in the society between people with and without disabilities.
Yeah, fantastic. What is the response been to the event? I have to imagine it's been super positive.
Yeah, it was amazing. And when I had the idea 4 years ago, I had to convince people first. Then I made a trailer just with my son, who was 16 at that time. And it was so impressive, the reaction. So CNN came, wanted to have an interview. BBC came. Many other newspapers all over the world came. Nice. The biggest companies in Japan want to organize the Cybathlon 2020 together with the Tokyo Olympics. It's amazing how the media, but also the society, is fascinated and want to be part of it.
Yeah, want to help lift it up and shine a light on it for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you see the Cybathlon events, let's say a few years out, 5 years down the line? Where do you see this growing to?
So we are already planning next events. There will be big events every 4 years, probably in Switzerland again, but it can move also all over the world. In these big events, we will add some more days and more disciplines, larger audience, and want to include also people with sensory deficits. We're thinking about Cybathlon arts, where people can play a guitar using a prosthetic device, or play other instruments, or dance with robotic devices. There are many ideas, also including elderly who are weak. And we also want to go do annual events, which can be a bit smaller, so national competitions, pre-competitions, or competitions in just 1 or 2 single disciplines, which can be new road shows into schools to include also young pupils, students. So there are many ideas.
Wow, that's really cool.
This is fascinating, and it obviously relates to those with disabilities and how technology can help them to lead more integrated lives. But I wonder how this affects, or if you're even thinking about this idea called transhumanism, where technology can actually be applied to those without disabilities to enhance capabilities.
That's a very good question, which I'm faced quite often. Of course, technology can be used in a very invasive way with the body or inside the body. And then you have to ask yourself if this is good or not. There are many examples which showing that it is good. People are using heart pacemakers for the heart, cochlear implants in the ear, or prosthetic devices can also be partly integrated. And as long as there is a big advantage, a big benefit, which is much larger than the risk by, for example, the dependence you might generate or the surgical implantation, the trauma. So if the benefit is much bigger, I say, okay, it's great to use this kind of technology. And there are many examples that technology nowadays are already that invasive in that sense that they're making you dependent on it. Yeah. If I go out of my house in the morning and forgetting my smartphone, I'm helpless. I feel really disabled.
Yeah, I feel like I'm there every day. I forget something, and if you forget your smartphone, man, it's like you can forget a million things and be okay, but you forget your smarphone. It's like you've left behind part of your brain.
That's right.
Honest.
That's right.
Although it's by no means a match to what's going on here. How can people follow and watch the Cybathlon?
Yes, of course, if you're living close to Switzerland or want to take a flight to Switzerland, you can join and enter the stadium. The tickets are almost sold out now, but if you're fast, you can still get some. And you can also watch it on television in the German-speaking countries live, or you can do an internet, watch it on internet via internet streaming.
Excellent.
It's streamed.
Yeah, you're streaming it, live streaming it to the site cybathlon.ethz.ch. Cybathlon.ethz.ch, and that's 1 a.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern for the qualifying rounds. Then you've got 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern for the finals here in the U.S. So folks are going to have to wake up a little early to watch this Cybathlon.
But well worth it, I'd say.
I was going to say, but totally worth it.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk all about Cybathlon. Robert Riener, of course, the founder and director of Cybathlon. Best of luck, and would love to check in with you at some point and kind of see how things are going.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Robert. Take care. All right, fascinating stuff.
Boy, really amazing.
Before we move on, we do have to thank the sponsor of today's episode.
Of course.
And the new Screensavers is brought to you by Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. If you're tired of clunky support tools that are a pain to use, you can modernize IT support with Jira Service Desk from Atlassian. Jira Service Desk is new service management software that IT teams are going to love to use. It's built on the Jira platform. Jira Service Desk delivers everything your IT team needs out of the box. And it's cost-effective, super cost-effective price right away. Jira Service Desk lets you give customers an easy way to ask for help. You can help your agents be productive from doing, like putting out fires. It happens all the time when, in the company, to helping employees get stuff done. Stay on top of service level agreements with dynamic queues and mobile alerts. You can also automate repetitive tasks so that your agents can focus on the important stuff, solving those problems, solving all of that important stuff that happens. Jira Service Desk is simple to set up and so affordable, you're probably not even going to need your boss's approval on this. We use Jira products all throughout TWiT. It's one of the easiest products to use and highly, highly recommend it. So you should check it out for yourself and see what it's all about. For a free trial of Jira Service Desk, all you got to do is visit Atlassian.com/TWiT. The first 100 signups are going to receive a free t-shirt. You can see why over 20,000 IT teams love Jira Service Desk by trying it free today. That's Atlassian.com/TWiT, and we thank them for their support. All right, coming up next, we get a lot of mail in the mailbag, so we're going to answer a couple kind of tuned to our interests and everything. So that sounds like a lot of fun. But before we do that, Ron Richards wants you to know about a great tool that makes his life so much easier when it comes to web development. Let's take a look.
Hey, I'm Ron Richards, co-host of All About Android here on the TWiT network. But by day, I do a lot of work online on the web, mobile apps, things like that. I'm not a designer or a developer, but I work with designers and developers. And these days, we all find ourselves working on computers using Photoshop, other tools to create things, whether they're mobile or web apps or not, or just presentations or things like that. There's a great app that I've been using for years now that I can't live without that I want to share with you. It's called Xscope. And it's a tool for designers, but it's so powerful that really it's the kind of thing where if you're doing any creating with your computer, I feel like you've got to have it installed. What Xscope is it gives you a bunch of tools that are accessible via your menu bar and allow you to get information from your screen while you're working on them. I've got it loaded here on my laptop, and let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you look up here on the top of the menu bar, I've got a bunch of different icons of different tool sets that are available via Xscope. They're grayed out to show you that they're not actually active, but when you click on one, they become active and paint over your screen. And in this particular case, this is an extremely powerful ruler. Okay, now if you're like me and you do any sort of HTML editing or even graphic design or graphic cutting or creation, you need to be down to the exact pixel. What this allows you to do is allows you to move a horizontal and vertical ruler, and you can size it to be whatever size you'd like to be, and as you scroll over the ruler, it gives you the exact pixel length or width of the area that you're measuring. Immensely, immensely powerful. Additionally, there's something called a loop, which gives you this little window that hovers over your desktop, and as you move your cursor, you see the information in the window changes. Oftentimes, I'm finding myself needing to match a specific color or find out exactly what the HTML or what the color value is in order to recreate it in Photoshop. Here, I can hover over it and see that this blue in my TweetDeck logo is number 4 EAEE8. And I can go over in Photoshop and create an icon that looks just like that. Amazing information that is just really easy to access on the fly as you're working with your apps. Additionally, there's a great tool to analyze text, because as we all know that different fonts and different text have different values. So what you're able to do is you're able to choose a letter, change the font, and get more information about it, change the measurement, so you have more control over the text that you're actually working with within your applications. So it's got a ton more different options that you can use. You see up here, there's a bunch of different screens up here. There's stuff in here that I don't even use because it's for really powerful designers, but I know folks, even folks at Apple, use this app as a key tool in their designing, so it shows you that it's got a great pedigree. You can go to xscopeapp.com, and there's a free trial download there where you can check it out, and then if you decide you like it, it is a little pricey. It's $49.99, but once you start using it and integrate it into your workflow, you find out it's the kind of thing that you cannot live without. I've been installing it on every computer I own for the past 8 years or so, and it's made my job a lot easier, simply being able to identify the information on the screen that isn't always readily available. So it's called Xscope, help you do your designing a little better, and you can check that out at xscopeapp.com. Until then, I'll be on All About Android every Tuesday. You can check us out there, and I'll see you next time.
I think I know that guy. I recognize him a little bit.
Somewhat familiar.
Yeah, I know his voice anyways. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he sat at the table 250 some odd episodes with me on a show. I don't know. Anyway, Ron's a great guy.
Yeah.
Thank you for the tip, Ron. And hey, should we answer some like mailbag stuff?
I'm all ready, man.
Questions from people?
Questions.
Send it on in. I've never actually had to open it. Leo normally does. So we've got this, which I think is a gift for you.
Oh, why, thank you.
I don't know what it is. It looks like a hat or something.
It's actually called rabbit ears.
Okay. So it's not a hat, it's ears.
It's
all right,
ears.
good to know.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not sure which is which, but I'll just hand that to you. And we'll take a look.
Nope, I think I got yours and you got mine.
All right, well here, how about that?
Hey, there we go.
So why don't we go with yours first?
Okay. Okay, mine is from Bryant. He says, I recently purchased a new Samsung 4K UHD TV. Congratulations.
Nice.
Yeah. I have a Roku 4 for streaming content and TiVo for my TV needs. I've been admonished for considering an Xbox One S, which Leo has, and I've actually now had a chance to use it myself, for my home theater. Could a 4K UHD Blu-ray only player be that much better? I do not currently have a Blu-ray player. Well, this is actually a great question. And the first question I would ask in return and follow-up is, are you interested in playing games? You know, I'm not. So an Xbox One makes no sense for me at all. But if you're a serious gamer and you want to play Xbox One games, then that would probably be a pretty good thing. It also has an Ultra HD Blu-ray player in it that would let you play Ultra HD Blu-rays, and that would be great. If you're not that much of a gamer, I would say buy an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, which there are only 3 on the market at the moment, Samsung, Panasonic, and Philips, believe it or not. Philips, which almost kind of disappeared. They're still in Europe, and now they've come back with this Blu-ray player, Ultra HD Blu-ray player. And I know the Samsung and Panasonic, and I think the Philips does as well, have 2 HDMI outputs. And this is important if you have an older AV receiver that can't accept can't, for example, pass through the 4K video. If you have 2 outputs, you can take one of them, the main one, and put that directly into your TV. If you have an older AV receiver.
Right.
And then take the other one and put that into your AV receiver, which handles only the audio. The Xbox One doesn't have that. It only has one HDMI output. So if
you have to have a better receiver.
You have to have a newer receiver.
Right. Yeah.
You know, older receivers can be good. Let's give them their due.
For sure.
They might not be able to decode or pass through the video, particularly if it's HDR, high dynamic range, which if he's got a Samsung 4K TV, it probably has that capability. Certainly Ultra HD Blu-rays have that capability. Most of them have been mastered with that. And if you haven't seen it, you must look at it because it's really amazing. It's so much more important to me than having more pixels on the screen.
HDR versus 4K. That
Correct.
Was actually a question I was
Correct.
about to ask you.
HDR is more important to me than 4K. But we're getting them both together, so okay. But you really want to be able to see that on a TV if it has that capability. So I say, unless you're a gamer, get a Samsung or a Philips. They're about in the $400 range, which is right around where the Xbox One S is as well. The Panasonic is more expensive. I think it's like $700, but it's got some really nice features. It's built like a tank. It's kind of a premium product. But I like those myself. And with the dual HDMI outputs, you don't have to also upgrade your audio receiver right away.
Right, and that might not be as much of a consideration, you know, if you do already have the nicer receiver. It looks like the Xbox One S right now is $300 for the introductory model. There's a $400 2 terabyte console. See, in our home, like I said earlier, we cut the cable, right?
Right.
Our main media device is a PlayStation 3.
See, okay.
I got a PlayStation 3 years ago because I wanted media center capabilities to, you know, stream media from my computer in the other room to our TV.
Right.
I think I've only ever played one game on it, ever. Like, I really just bought it for that.
Right.
And it's been perfectly, you know, fine in this regard. It sounds like the devices that you're mentioning might actually be a little bit more expensive than the base model here. So then it's just a matter of you know, do you need that extra port? Do you want more of a premium focused product on home media viewing versus multi-purpose?
Right, and all of these standalone players, dedicated players, certainly will also stream from Netflix and Amazon and a bunch of apps.
They're all so smart now.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they do everything now. So
yeah, I know.
Crazy world we live in. That's the state of technology that we're in right now. Richard wrote in to say, I recently switched from a Windows phone to a Nexus 6P and learned that speech to text isn't a feature on the 6P. It's important I have speech to text on my phone as I spend 4+ hours a day in the car.
Oh, man.
Holy cow, man.
Wow.
I am sorry about that.
Yeah, really.
I've tried a few apps, but they don't work all the time, and they tend to turn my ringer and sounds off. If I forget to turn them on when I leave the vehicle, I then start missing texts and even calls. Do you folks know an app that replicates the basic functionality of all Windows phones? So I will say right off the top, Nexus 6P does have speech to text. It's kind of more or less it's in the form of Google Now and you know, Google Voice commands. So it's possible that you don't have that activated, and if you don't, that's a great place to start. It's built in Android essentially, and then if you have a Nexus 6P, I mean, that's as close to Android's vision or Google's vision of Android. So you're going to have it there. You just need to turn it on. If it's search that you're looking for while you're driving, all you have to do is go into Google Now settings, then go into Voice and activate OK Google detection from the Google app. Also activate from any screen and activate while driving. What this allows you to do is while you are driving, Android underneath the hood knows the action that you're doing. It knows that you're driving versus riding a bike versus walking and running. It knows that condition based on processing that's happening underneath the hood. So when you're driving, it knows you're driving, and then at any time you got your hands on the wheel, you can just say, okay, guru. I'm not gonna actually say it because then I'll fire off a bunch of phones from people listening. And then that phone that's mounted on the dash is going to wait for a command. Is it send text message to my wife, blah, 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 and then it would send it? Or is it navigate to wherever and it will send it? That's all built into Android. But another app that I would also recommend is an app that is one of the first apps I install on any device that I test because it's instrumental to how I use my phone. It's called Agent. And what that allows you to do, it has settings for car mode where you can go in there and either enable or disable silencing the phone when you're driving. So it detects that you're driving. It will, in my case, I want it to silence the phone. I don't want distraction, right? So I have it silence the phone. I have it make it so that calls and texts don't come through. Well, you could disable that and make sure that they do come through. You can enable a feature called Read Messages Aloud. That, and also tell it to read non-SMS messages. That makes sure that texts that you get, messages through Messenger or Hangouts, all that kind of stuff, when it comes through, it's going to actually read it out in text-to-speech through your speaker.
The other way around.
The other way around. And Agent will then prompt you to reply with your voice. It'll say, do you want to send a reply? You say yes, blah, blah, blah. And you're doing all this with your hands mounted, firmly on the steering wheel. So I'm hoping that that's getting you a little bit closer to what you found in Windows Phone. It's definitely there, and there are definitely apps that kind of move it even further. That would be my recommendation.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds comprehensive enough, I hope, anyways. I hope that answers the question. And thank you, Richard, for sending that in. I think that's it. I think we've
Can it possibly be?
It's kind of crazy. It's like you blink and you realize you've talked about space, you've talked about bionic humans, you've talked a lot about home theater. I mean, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Why this show's so much fun.
What a great time. Thank you so much for having me
Absolutely. Here. Scott, tell people kind of where they can follow all the awesome stuff that you're doing, what you got going right now.
Sure. Well, I'm the editor of avsforum.com, which is the world's largest online community of audio-video enthusiasts. We have over 1 million members. Joining is free. And that lets you post comments into all the various forums. We have, I don't know, millions, tens of millions of posts and threads and so on about anything and everything. And awesome. What I do with my colleague Mark Henninger is add what's called editorial content. So, more like magazine type content, but it's also perfectly available to comment on as well, and we welcome that and encourage it. It's also a moderated forum, so if things get a little ugly, things can get taken care of. But people get passionate about this stuff.
For sure.
Anyway, so that's the AVS Forum. I also have my podcast on the Twit Network, Home Theater Geeks. We mentioned that earlier. I do that every week. We record on Thursdays, 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 to 6 Eastern. And you can watch that live and then pick it up afterwards as a podcast on twit.tv/HTG and on YouTube and iTunes and all kinds of places like that. So
people I was going to say people definitely want to check that out if they want to find out more about your calibration of Leo's
TV. The very last episode that we just did, we calibrated Leo's OLED TV. And it's a bit longer episode than usual, but calibration is a kind of a complex procedure. So, but we had a great time doing it. It was really a lot of fun. You can also email me at scott@twit.tv. Easy enough. And ask me some questions or send me anything you want, and I respond as much as I possibly can.
Excellent. It's always fun doing the show with you, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm all over Twit too. I do Tech News Today, all about Android. Go to twit.tv, you'll see my face on things. Twit has a newsletter. You'll want to get signed up so you can find out all about all the things that we're doing, the kind of events that we're covering. Lots of information sent out every week. Twit.tv/newsletter. You're going to get inside news, announcements, plus you're going to find out what is coming up on future shows. So it's really good stuff. Subscribe at twit.tv/newsletter. And of course, subscribe to this show. Just go to twit.tv/NSS. You can also find this and all Twit shows on YouTube. This one in particular, youtube.com/thenewscreensavers. And if you want to kind of pitch in, you got a question, you want to be part of the mailbag, or maybe you want to call in with a question. Obviously the producers work hard on filling out this show with amazing questions like the one that you might have. So send us an email, newscreensavers@twit.tv. It's a lot of fun, folks. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye until next week. See you later. Bye, everyone. Woohoo!